What's going on, DJ Nation? Back with another video. About to hop into a Best Ball Mania 4 draft. This is going to be my, 89th draft of the offseason. And the draft just filled, so I'm going to be picking out of the 9 spot. Not one of my favorite slots, as I've said in previous videos. Prefer to be at the beginning, top 6, or I'd rather be like 12th, to be honest. But fine picking from each range. Honestly, you get a nice mix of different players. ADP has changed over the course of the summer, so getting exposure to different guys, different combinations, I'm fine with that. Pretty balanced portfolio right now. I haven't read off my top 5 exposures in a while, and they're pretty similar to what they were, I'd say, about a month ago. First, I have Hunter Renfroe, 34%. He's my only guy over 30%, and I'm sure that'll come down. He just was going in a perfect range for me to take him in these drafts. He's a late round pick, so it doesn't cost me a lot. And if he pays off something similar to what he did a couple of years ago, I think he's a great value. Tyquan Thornton, 25%, 21% Mike Evans, 20% Devin Singletary, and 20% Zach Charbonnet. So that's my current top 5. All of them going round 6 or later. So that's typically what you're going to be looking at as far as your highest exposed guys. They're going to be guys you're taking later on. Pretty typical start there, as you see. I'm on the clock at number 9. It's pretty much only 3 options here for me. CeeDee Lamb, Austin Eckler. Actually, no, I wouldn't say 3 options. I like all those receivers. I'll go CD. I think he's right on the cusp of that elite tier. And honestly, if Oakland, not Oakland, honestly, if Vegas had a better quarterback, I'm taking Devontae Adams over CeeDee Lamb all day, every day. He's still elite to me. I think he's still consensus top 3 receiver. His ceiling is ridiculous. And that's real life. You know, I would, as far as fantasy goes, I think Kupp, Chase, and Jefferson all have a higher ceiling than him fantasy points wise. But he's right in that mix. So would have loved him to fall back to me here at 16. And it's not just Jimmy G. It's the injury risk associated with Jimmy G. If you told me Jimmy G was going to play 17 games, I would probably take Adams over CeeDee Lamb most times. But that's so up in the air. And then, you know, they have nobody as a backup. So it's like Jimmy goes down, which he does all the time, and you're stuck with Brian Hoyer or, you know, some other scrub. So not a fan of that. So I think it makes sense here just to go St. Brown. I know it's a pretty common stack. He did go a little after ADP though. So Dallas, Detroit, week 17 and play already. Obviously not going to have a chance to get Pollard, but Jahmyr Gibbs is on the table. Jameson Williams. Obviously Dak, Brandon Cooks, all those guys who go in at a very palatable range later on are all pretty good options for me. So after I went St. Brown at 16, we see Chris Olave 17, Jalen Waddle 18, Patrick Mahomes 19, Saquon Barkley at 20 to the Tyreek Hill owner, Devonta Smith 21, and we see Pollard go there to the McCaffrey team. So pretty deadly duo there at running back. Not a big running back proponent anymore. I definitely did a lot of them last year and had some success, but I've been converted to more of a early wide receiver, zero RB type of guy. I would say about 70-30. 70% of the time I'm going receiver early. The rest of the times I'll mix in a Kelsey, I'll mix in an elite quarterback, I'll mix in two running backs, but those are fewer and farther between than they were last season. So after Pollard, Derrick Henry, 23. Team at the turn goes T. Higgins, Ramondre Stevenson, Mark Andrews, 26. The Mark Andrews theme continues. This is about the range he was going last season. I saw many times last year the team at the turn would go Kelsey, Andrews, and that bully tight end strategy. That's the data shows doesn't really work very well in terms of advance rate, in terms of winning tournaments. It's not the viable strategy that people think it is, but I did see that a lot last year. But as I said in a previous video, that's why I love to draft early in the offseason, where the real sickos are drafting, because prior to the NFL draft on the big board, I was getting Mark Andrews in the late fourth, couple times in the early fifth. And it's just like, I look at those teams now, they're just so completely stacked. Being able to get him there, being able to get Lamar in the fifth. A lot changes after the draft, after free agency. So scooping up that early value was it's something I absolutely love to do. Looks like this team's timing out. They go Amari Cooper. So Lamb, St. Brown, see what makes sense here. I think Brees makes a lot of sense here. Don't have much Brees Hall. Couple picks after ADP. I'm going to hope and pray that Jahmyr Gibbs makes it to me on the wrap back around at 40. ADP is 39. So if I don't get sniped right there by the team picking at 39, I would be ecstatic. But they already have two receivers. There's a bit of a tier break in some people's opinion at Gibbs right there. ETN certainly not getting the same love he was earlier on in the offseason. So Gibbs goes right there. I mean, I knew Brees Hall wouldn't have made it back to me. I don't think either way. I think I don't take him there at 33. He goes with the next pick right there at 34 or 35. So I don't know. Gibbs probably would have made more sense for this team, but I think Brees Hall has the better season. So what do you do in that scenario? I think you just lean towards the better player on paper. Gibbs certainly could smash top 15 pick as a running back. They're going to feed him. Their offensive line's great, but I think Montgomery does just enough to keep Gibbs as more of an RB2 than an RB1. And I think Brees Hall is an undisputed RB1. No one's going to really push him for work, barring his knee preventing him from doing so. So do I go with the third receiver here? I like Watson. I like London. I like McLaurin. I'm going to go ETN. And the reason I'm going to go ETN, even though I've soured on him a bit, and in a vacuum, I'd probably prefer Najee Harris. But I want to get more Trevor Lawrence. I've seen him go later and later and later, and not every single draft. Sometimes he gets taken at ADP, But I saw a draft, I want to say maybe 2 drafts ago that I did where he just fell into the 80s. He was like end of the 7th round. I saw him taken. I think it was like 80, 81, 82 overall, something in that range. And it just, for a guy with as much upside and potential and being with a coach like Doug Peterson, who you saw get the most out of him in his sophomore season, his rookie season, like does you could just throw that away. It doesn't even count. Let's take last year and view that as his rookie season, in many ways, with having to deal with Urban Meyer and his fucking nonsense. So throw that out. I think Lawrence catapults himself into that elite tier this season. Absolutely. So him going in the 80s is borderline disrespectful in my opinion. And I have not gotten enough of him there. I've passed on him, especially when he was unstacked. So if he comes around to me and the price is right, I want to at least have some of his pass catchers, at least some of his weapons. And ETN struggled a bit, I guess. I wouldn't even say struggled. Like he just wasn't as big of a part of the passing game as many people expected. But maybe he pivots more to being a passing down, third down back this season. And maybe, he gets a few more dump offs than he did last year, with a lot of the coverage now being shifted to Calvin Ridley coming aboard. You get Ridley, you get Kirk, you got to worry about Zay Jones as a number 3 is a good player. Evan Ingram's a dangerous player. So a lot of weapons in that offense, and maybe that takes a lot of the attention off of ETN. He can do more with more space and less coverage attention. So, and that's why I did that, because it didn't really line up for me to get Christian Kirk. Ridley was already gone. I guess if I was trying to build that out, I could have taken Ridley at 33. But I really don't love Ridley in that second, third range. I've gotten a few shares of him, but he's not my favorite click in that range. So I would be fine if it was like an ETN, Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Ingram type of team. Maybe grab a Zay Jones late. I'm fine with that. I don't think I need Kirk or Ridley to build out a Jag stack. So I'm back on the clock. Hate clicking Miles Sanders' name, but I wanted to build out some more Jacksonville, Carolina stacks. Of all the options on the board, I would have preferred those receivers there. I probably would have preferred Hawkinson over Sanders, but and obviously Justin Fields. Like I think Justin Fields right there after ADP would have been a steal. The team that got him right there at 59 is an absolute steal. See what their roster looks like. Oh wow, so they do have DJ Moore as well. They took DJ Moore at 38. We're able to push it all the way back to 59 to get Fields. They got to be ecstatic about that. They got Bijan. They got their 3 starting receivers: Devontae Adams, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore, and then they get Fields at the wrap back around at 59. They're going to be feeling great about this team so far. That's why I feel gross about picking Miles Sanders. He's a dead zone guy to me. But he's probably the best guy available for Carolina in terms of fantasy options. So I'll bite the bullet. I'll take him here just to get a little bit different with my exposures. So wow, TJ Hawkinson. I almost wish he wasn't there, because I'm gonna pass on him. I think Kittle's a better value. Even though he's after ADP right there, I'm fine with it. Wow. And that team behind me goes Kittle over Hawkinson, which I'm fine with. I'm cool with that. Um, I think just head to head, I think they're pretty equal players. They both are spike week guys. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. I just think that with the Vikings bringing in Addison, I think that could hurt Hawkinson a bit. They get three pretty good receivers now. Obviously, one elite receiver, and then KJ Osborne has proven to be serviceable, and Addison could step in and pick up a large target share. So I think even if Hawkinson repeated exactly what he did last year, him and Kittle were in a similar range as far as scoring, and Kittle missed his typical, I think, 1 or 2 games last year. So factoring in averages and everything else, I think they're pretty similar. I'd probably give the slight edge to Kittle, honestly. He's proven to have a higher ceiling. His best season is much better than Hawkinson's best season. So yeah, but I mean, probably should have taken one of them. I think my team would have better balance here if I took one of them. Taking Miles Sanders as my third running back. It's not my typical start. Let me take a look at my roster. So 3 running backs, 3 receivers, definitely an odd start for me. Been trying to get more Treylon Burks, like in that range right there where I took Treylon. I've been taking either Kittle or Miles Sanders pretty much every time. And I didn't even notice right there that Lawrence got taken. Of course, every time I want Trevor Lawrence, he gets taken like 2 rounds before. Like I saw him get taken in the 80s. I saw him get taken in the late 70s. So many drafts. And it's just the drafts that I want him. He ends up going ahead of ADP. It's so annoying. So I'm on deck here. I'll give a breakdown of these picks in a minute. Start from where I took Sanders and just kind of give a quick rundown. Things that are standing out so far. Running backs getting ugly pretty quick. So feel good about that. With Lawrence unavailable now, I think smart thing to do is just pivot. Evan Ingram, I would have been considering, probably not anymore. Brandon Cooks, top of the board. Fits in with my Dallas Detroit bet. So this is where it kind of gets a little dicey because I like Jamison Williams a good bit. And big fan of Jamison Williams, despite seeing him do pretty much nothing aside from a 41-yard touchdown catch. I love him for the second half of the season. But I take Jamison. I want to get Dak as well. So I take Jamison and then risk missing out on Dak. I think so. Receiver after this gets so ugly. So I think that receiving core is pretty nasty. And I could always go with the 3 late tight ends. Ferguson is a guy who I haven't gotten much of. I think could have a nice role. Hayden Hurst, even though I don't love him. Hursty. Somebody who's an option. I don't know. The guy, I mean, it's just like the guy hasn't put up over 100 points either of the last 2 seasons. So it's not somebody I'm terribly concerned with, but he is an option late if I want to go with a 3 tight end build, or maybe the old rare 4 tight end build. We'll see. I think I've only done one of those. It never feels great. Just get some guys in the queue that I've got my eye on from either Dallas, Detroit, or Carolina, Jacksonville. But the Carolina Jacksonville train's pretty much dead. But we'll see. Yeah, and you just see those quarterbacks flying. So let me go to the board real quick. Sorry. At 57, I went Miles Sanders. Then after Sanders, 58, J.K. Dobbins, Justin Fields, absolute steal, 59 overall. That team is actually crushing it out of the 11 spot there. At the turn, Michael Pittman 60 and Trevor Lawrence 61 to the team out of the 12 spot. And on the wrap back around, that team at the 11 spot takes Kyle Pitts 62. So they got their anchor RB, they got their 3 receivers, they got their elite quarterback, and they got their elite tight end. So just a well-rounded team. Then they grabbed a couple more running backs I really like, Rashad White, DeAndre Swift. Just well-built team. I really like that team. So where was I? Okay, Kyle Pitts 62, Lockett 63. I went Treylon Burks 64. Then we see the two right after I went Treylon Burks, those 2 tight ends I was considering, Hawkinson and Kittle, both go back to back 65, 66. And run on the elite receivers there. You see Hollywood Brown, JSN, Mike Evans, Jordan Addison go, Gabe Davis, Jahan Dotson. That's a tier break for me after Dotson. Some people throw Tony in that mix or Quentin Johnston, George Pickens, but I think it kind of cuts at Dotson. I would maybe throw Pickens in there. I like Pickens a lot for this upcoming season, but the other couple guys, Gabe Davis has crazy potential that we've seen, but I don't know. Can he put it all together as a number 2 instead of a number 3/4 when he's not getting that crazy defensive attention? Remains to be seen. Maybe Kincaid being there will help him a little bit. So after I went Treylon Burks 64, wrap back around to me, that run of receivers was happening. So I took Brandon Cooks 81, and then 88 overall. I took Jamison Williams, slightly out of ADP, but builds in the Dallas Detroit stack for me. The Daco, of course he did. Unbelievable. Like, why? Who does this team have? They get nobody. They get no fucking Cowboys. Makes no sense. I'll go Charbonnet. He's the best player on the board to me. We're pretty close to done at running back. I could stop there and I would feel fine about it if Sanders and Brees didn't have the same bye week. I just think you're cutting it thin sometimes with that. Like, so week 7 rolls around. I have ETN and Charbonnet as my only running backs available. Let's say one of them has an injury, ETN's banged up. I'm pretty much going into that week with 1 running back. Those things are going to hurt your advance rates, regardless of what people say. Oh, I don't look at bye weeks. Well, you have to in certain scenarios. I agree. I don't look at it much. You look at my receivers there, 7, 7, 7, 9, 9. Those are my bye weeks. So multiple week 7 buys. It's something I do have to think about. I get into week 7. You know, if I take 2 more guys with a week 9 or a week 7 bye, I get into week 7. I could be relying on 2 guys, 2 healthy guys. So I try to manage and balance that as best I can. It's not always easy, but you know, like if it's 2 quarterbacks and they have the same bye, you know, it's not my favorite thing to do, but it's like, all right, you could miss out on those 15 points, 20 points for that week and you'll still be okay. But it's tough to do it at receiver and running back, especially when you're in a 12-man field that's really sharp. You know, that 20 points, 30 points that you're missing out at running back if you're short on running backs or if you're short on receivers, that could make all the difference between advancing and not advancing. So I'm going to go AR here. He's the best player on the board, in my opinion. I'll throw Goff in the queue on the wrap back around. I don't think I need any of Richardson's weapons. It gives me the upside I would like out of the quarterback position, especially if I'm taking a statue like Goff. Richardson can spike on those weeks where he's using his legs, and then Goff can spike on those weeks where he's, the Lions get hot and he throws 3-4 touchdowns. So best of both worlds there. I can always grab like an Alec Pierce. And this actually would be a perfect team for a 3 tight end build if I went with let's say Laporta, Hurst. Who else? Who am I missing? Oh yeah, Ferguson. Hurst, Laporta, or I grabbed like a Jelani Woods late, Josh Downs. This is how I utilize my queue. I throw a bunch of guys in. I almost never time out. I think it's happened to me, 2 or 3 times maybe. And that's mostly due to like a bad Wi-Fi connection or something. If I'm out in public drafting or something like that. And but normally I'm not auto drafting. So I use that queue as just a way for me to not forget that somebody's there. So hopefully Goff doesn't get sniped right here. He doesn't, so that's nice. Good at quarterback. Got my nice little Dallas Detroit stack built in. Got Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams with Goff. I get 2 of the more important Dallas pieces with Cooks and Lamb. Can still grab Michael Gallup maybe if he wraps back around. Jake Ferguson. The only thing that sucks was I was trying to build in a little bit of that Carolina Jacksonville game because I don't have much of it, but they also have a week 7 bye, so it makes it a little tough with this sort of a build. I'm just gonna have a shit ton of week 7 buys, but we'll figure it out. We'll navigate the rest of the draft and see how it goes. I think I added just another one of my drafts thrown out because I just saw some money pop back into my accounts. I wonder if that's one of the drafts that I had done that was just like ridiculous as far as people drafting way ahead of ADP and drafting guys who weren't even in the league anymore. I've had a few of those this offseason. It's definitely frustrating. Hoping Gallup makes it right here. It's not on the top of the queue, on the top of the board as far as ADP goes. So in this draft, there looks like they're auto drafting, probably, yeah, definitely based off their rankings because Jaylen Warren wasn't at the top of the queue there. So actually really nice. Love it. I got the top 3 Dallas receivers to go with Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Mixed Treylon Burks in there for another number 1 elite option. So that receiving core is really nice. Like my running backs. Never feels good to click Miles Sanders, in my opinion, but all 4 of those guys have really high upside potential for next season. So feel good about that. Like grabbing Richardson there. It's 12 picks past ADP. And I have an elite tight end, and I would say maybe 80, excuse me, 80 to 85% of these drafts, I have an elite tight end. So I'm fine here going with more of a 3, maybe a 4 tight end build. I think of all the drafts, this would actually be the perfect one to go for tight ends. I would feel perfectly fine stopping at 7 receivers. So basically just taking 1 more. I could stay at the 4 running backs and 2 quarterbacks. So what's that math? 7 and 4 is 11, 13. Yeah, so I could even take a fifth running back, seventh receiver, and get four tight ends. So a 2-5-7-4, which is a pretty unusual build, but might work in this scenario. It's almost just like four dart throws, and you hope one of them sticks each week, and especially in the playoffs. A guy like Ferguson maybe has a 2 touchdown game, or Hayden Hurst. That's what the tight ends give you the touchdown potential. So aside from Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, a handful of guys, Pitts, you're not expecting like 10 catch, 100-yard games out of these tight ends. You're hoping for touchdowns. You're hoping like a Dawson Knox type of season from a couple years ago when he just was not doing much in certain games, but he'd score 2 touchdowns. So Alec Pierce goes right there. Somebody I was definitely looking at to match up with Richardson. I could still grab a Josh Downs. Don't know how well he meshes with Richardson as a speedy slot. Richardson's more of a deep thrower, pocket breaks down, break the pocket. I don't see him as that prototypical precision passer like a Brady, but someone who Josh Downs would thrive with, just an over the middle type of accurate thrower like that. But see what makes sense here. I think Laporta makes a lot of sense. As my first tight end, slightly ahead of ADP, but I know I didn't like the receivers in that range. I like Tank Bigsby quite a bit. He would have actually been a nice handcuff for ETN, and I could have been done at running back. Maybe he makes it back to me here. That would probably make the most sense. And then I can arrange these guys in order of ADP. Josh Downs goes pretty much towards the end of the draft, round 18. So if I could get Bigsby right here, and I could just aim for these four guys going forward, even if they're ahead of ADP. And of course, I don't get them. So what makes sense here? Everybody there is well ahead of ADP. Let me go just Tajay Spears. I don't have much of him. Looks like he's the de facto number 2 back in Tennessee now. And if anything were to happen to Derrick Henry, you're potentially looking at an RB1 in a team team like Tennessee that loves to run the ball. Was highly productive in college. So I feel like it's a good spot to take a shot on him. Of course, he is a week 7 buy, though. I wish I looked at that, but that's all right. I think this plan is still completely viable right here. My next pick, my next wrap around, I'll just get whatever of those 3 tight ends I like the best. Even if they're ahead of ADP a little bit, that's cool. And Josh Downs will give me, if I'm able to get him, he'll give me a little mix up of this week 7, week 9 buys here that I'm kind of dealing with at the receiver position. He'd be another body there that's, a completely different bye week, week 11. Laporta has a week 9 bye with the, couple of these tight ends having a week 7 bye that'll mix things up. Jelani Woods week 11. So there'll be a nice variety of bye weeks there. Only place where it could probably bite me is at running back. Like I said, 3 week 7 buys. I'm going into week 7 with ETN and Charbonnet, which on paper, that sounds great to me. Like, I think if they're both healthy, that's fine, but you never know. You're always going to be concerned about health, which is why people have been doing, 3 running back builds or 1 quarterback build. And it's just like, you're leaving everything up to injury. I guess you are in some regard, no matter what, but I don't know. Doesn't make much sense to me. It's a boom or bust strategy. So I'll go Hurst there. I actually might go Downs with my next pick. He is ahead of ADP, well ahead of ADP here at this next pick, but I'd actually be fine if either one of those tight ends got taken. Like, I wouldn't bat an eye about it. And I actually would be kind of disappointed if he got taken because I have none of Richardson's pass catchers. And if it was between him and Jelani Woods, like, I don't have much faith in Jelani Woods being anything. The Colts have always just been a weird team with tight ends in recent years. With seems just like they can't nail down one guy. It's always a collection of different guys, and there's always hype in training camp about one guy, and then ends up being a different guy. So I just don't have enough. Like, all I have is ETN, really. I just don't have enough Carolina pieces really to. I don't have enough Jacksonville pieces to really build out that Jacksonville Carolina stack. I'm fine having a couple. I'll try again in a different draft to make that combination happen. But that begs the question, then why did I take Hayden Hurst there at 177? I don't know. This is so far and away different than my normal draft strategy. Like, completely going away from ADP, taking 4 tight ends. I think on paper the team will look good, honestly. Like, I like the way this team turned out, but in ADP, as most people will tell you, is more of a guide than a definitive thing that you must follow. But it's a guide for a reason. It's in place, so you're getting value. It's not that you could take somebody 3 rounds ahead of ADP, but why would you? You could take 2 other guys and then get them, 3 rounds later. It's like, it doesn't make sense to reach often like that. I'm more apt to do it in the later rounds. Like, I don't feel as bad about it doing it in the later rounds. If I'm in the 15th round and there's somebody I really like and they go in the 17th, I don't care as much. But I don't like doing it early. And I don't really like to do it in general. Because it's amazing in those drafts when you're just playing that ADP game and it falls to you perfectly. You get somebody 8 picks after ADP and you were thinking about taking them in the last round. There's no better feeling than that in fantasy football, especially like in these best ball drafts where you get somebody so far past ADP that you're able to build out the rest of your team to be a super team. And I have a few teams like that. They don't all go that way, but the teams I have that are like that are just like, I feel so excited about them going into this season. I feel like I've done 89 drafts. I have about 5 or 6 teams that I think literally, everything went according to plan. And if no injuries happen, these teams are going to be advancing and should have a chance to win it. So, that's what it feels like on paper. Once the season starts, that feeling could dissipate pretty fast. But as of now, that's how I feel. I feel pretty good about my portfolio this year. I'm much more experienced than I was last year. Best ball is still fairly new to me, and I feel like I crushed it. I advanced like 30 something percent of my teams across all drafts, and I've only gotten sharper. So I'll go Ferguson here. Really nice tie-in it without getting Dak Prescott, which obviously I would have preferred in this build over Richardson, but happy to take Richardson with the rushing upside. I think that's as a plan B, he's perfect. Little breakdown of my last four picks. I went Tajay Spears 160, Hayden Hurst 177, Josh Downs 184, and my last pick Jake Ferguson 201. Let's take a look at the board. I know I haven't had the board up as much as I normally do. I'm trying to just. This is a weird draft for me. I've just been trying to talk through these picks, and so what makes sense here? I think Jelani Woods actually does make a lot of sense. It's gonna be my my second four tight end build. So you can't do a four tight end build, in my opinion, unless you really like your receivers. And I love this receiving core. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Treylon Burks, Brandon Cooks, Jamison Williams, Michael Gallup, Josh Downs. Really strong, especially at the top there. Those top four are all beasts, all could put up 1,000+ yard seasons. Wouldn't bat an eye over that. So 2-5-7-4, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff at quarterback. Running back, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Miles Sanders, Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears. Kind of forced myself there to take Sanders. It was ahead of ADP. It just didn't feel like a great click, honestly, even in hindsight. Like my intention was Jacksonville, Carolina, and obviously the draft did not give me that combo. Lawrence went well ahead of ADP. Even I was just I didn't say it out loud, but I was looking at maybe I take Bryce Young here and go with the third quarterback. It was just bouncing around in my head, and then he got taken right in that range where he got picked. I think it was like the 13th or 14th. Trying to look back there and see if I can see it. Yeah, he went at the well, he was up for grabs. I can't really say that. He went 192 overall. But I was considering him on that wrap back around because I had taken Hayden Hurst 177. Josh Downs 184, and then if he had made it there to me at 201, I was thinking about it. But that team at the turn went back to back with the rookie QBs. So going with the four tight end build, I think it's pretty unique. None of these guys are quote unquote studs, but it's a dart throw. It's a strategy that you're going to go in and say, hopefully one of these guys can score on a weekly basis, and come playoff time with four bodies there, maybe not a lot of teams with four tight ends making it into the tournament, advancing. It will help me get unique in a huge field tournament like this. So that's kind of the thinking behind it. So let's just take a look at the last couple rounds here. See some, that last round is always interesting. See a wide variety of names. A lot of times people don't get drafted who probably should. Like I don't see Hunter Henry here. I obviously I read out my top 5 exposures and he's in there as a last round pick. I think he's great value, but doesn't always get drafted. I feel like a lot of times when I don't take him, he doesn't get drafted. So to me, that's a good thing, but who knows? Generic Prince, one of the few times I've seen him taken. So people get creative. People really dig deep and do their research. And Isaiah Pacheco was one of those kind of guys last year. Wasn't getting drafted at all. Got a little bit of steam during camp. Started going in the 18th and the 17th, and all of a sudden, by the time that BBM was about to fill, he was going in the 14th, and ended up paying off a much better ADP than that. So a lot still to be determined for sure. Camp is coming, and we'll see who are the risers, who are the fallers. I'm happy at the range I'm at. I'm looking at about 20 more drafts, so I'm going to be pacing them out a little bit better. I went pretty hard early, slowed down, and then have gone pretty hard over the past few weeks. But I'm going to pick and choose my spots going forward. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave me a like. I would really appreciate that. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think I could do better, what the channel can improve upon, if there's certain things that you'd like to see from me. Any feedback's appreciated. And most of all, subscribe, just to show that you really like what's going on here and you want to be a part of this. Would be much appreciated. So thank you guys. Look forward to talking to you soon. DGen Nation out.